Hey, I'm going to share with you what's the most attractive strategy that you can use for dealing with your insecurities. For one and foremost, just know this: we all have our insecurities. Now, most of us don't like to say that, and it makes us feel really weak and powerless to admit that, hey, I've got insecurities about this. But the reality is, it's what makes us human, and it makes us all one and less alone, just knowing that we all have insecurities. So, for one, if you're a person that deals with insecurities, just understand that you're not alone and that every human being that you encounter, they too have insecurities. Whether they're honest about it or not, that's the difference. If you're new here, my name is Arica Angelo, and I've been helping people for 14 years. So if you need help and you're like, I need some one-on-one help, I need some support, go to my website, aricaangelo.com. I've got resources there that will change your experience and your result with your love, with your relationships, and to give you the power to be able to change that. So this is something that I talked about in one of my online courses and one of my coaching experiences. And it was interesting because it was something that I shared that I felt was so subtle. But so many of my clients said, this was the most powerful thing that you shared to me, Arica. And I realized that I don't do this in my own life. And chances are you're going to find this quite surprising as well. Most of us, when we have insecurities, what do we all do? Especially if you come from a Western culture, it's attack, attack, attack. Figure out what the insecurities are and deal with them. But what happens is when we go at it that way, what do we tell ourselves? There's something wrong with me. I need to fix it and I need to work hard. But doesn't that sound like a familiar message that you've been hearing all your life? Think about it. Let's go all the way back to when you were in school, right? What did your teacher do? Most of the time, you heard, let's say 70%, let's be conservative, but the reality is 90% of what you heard when you were in school was what you were doing wrong. In fact, it was super rare that you probably encountered a teacher that was very encouraging of you, that told you that you were a star, that you were excellent at something, that you were magnificent, that you had such a beautiful way of approaching your education. No, chances are you didn't hear a lot of that. So we've been conditioned most of our lives to be told what's wrong and what we need to improve and what we need to change. The challenge is that becomes a very self-defeating, habitual way of approaching life. So when it comes to our securities, when we approach it from that same thing, that same ethos that we've been taught our entire lives, what happens is sometimes we end up beating ourselves up more. This is not attractive. A person who beats himself up constantly is not an attractive person. That self-loathing, that constantly putting yourself down, making fun of yourself. No one finds this attractive, but for most of us, this has become a very habitual practice that we do in every area of our life. We put ourselves down about how we handle our money. We put ourselves down about how we showed up on social media. We put ourselves down on how we showed up on that date. We put ourselves down on wanting more from our spouse. We put ourselves down for having needs emotionally and thinking that we're weak and we're clingy and we're too sensitive. There are so many areas in our life where we put ourselves down. But I want to give you a different alternative here. And this is the one thing that my clients, when they went through my course and when we were doing coaching, they said, Arica, this one thing that you just shared that you thought was, you touched on it, but it was the one thing that really touched me. And I realized I don't do enough of was this. I talked about something called self-compassion. And what self-compassion ultimately is something very simple, which is self-acceptance. It's so interesting. Confident people, we always seem to think that confident people are people who have everything together and who are perfect, but that's not truth. The truth is what we really value about a confident person is they accept all aspects of them. Whether you or I accept them or not, they have come to terms with accepting themselves. And there's something about that that we find so fascinating that we go, how do I become more like that? I think we have this projected image that the confident person is the person who's in charge and they are perfect at everything that they do. And it's just not true. We tend to gravitate towards people's imperfections. But listen, you can be a person who has tons of imperfections, but if you're constantly putting yourself down regarding those imperfections, people don't admire that. But if you have imperfections and you accept them, you go, yeah, I'm not that tall. Yeah, I don't have that much hair. Yeah, I'm not the most attractive person. Yeah, I'm not the most funny person. Yeah, I'm not the most business savvy person. Yeah, I'm not the best speaker. Yeah, I'm not the best dresser. There's something that we find so comforting and so reassuring about a person who has learned to accept themselves. And so when I took my clients through the training and we talked about self-compassion, that was one of the ways that we get ourselves to the place that we can go, I finally accept this about myself. Yeah, sure, you can have those light bulb moments where you go, screw this, I'm tired of beating myself up. I choose to just accept myself. Sometimes it can happen that way, but sometimes when we've had conditioning and we've beat ourselves down for so many years, or we've had people or their words that have still beat us up that we heard from when we were 5 years old, and they're still beating us up. They're still sabotaging us to this day. It's in those areas that self-compassion is needed. And so if you're like, how do I do any of this? Please go to my website, aricaangelo.com, because I've got ways to be able to support you so that you can start treating yourself differently. But the reality is this, when we treat ourselves differently, when we choose to just accept ourselves, people find this really attractive. So it's not always fighting against our insecurities. Sometimes we just have to own up to them and go, this is who I am, still value myself, still appreciate myself, still love myself. It's not always fighting against ourselves. Pay attention to this. Sometimes it's just supporting ourselves. So ask yourself, am I fighting against myself? Am I fighting against myself, or am I supporting myself? Because the person who supports himself is always the person who's most attractive. So in the comment section, I would love to know, are you going to be the person who continues to fight against yourself? Or are you going to become the person that supports yourself? Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. That will help me and let YouTube know, hey, this woman is providing things that are changing people's lives and experience with love. Now, I've got this other video here to support you. Make sure that you watch it because I want you to have the change and the results so that you get the love that belongs to you. I'll see you in my next video.